Hello. Right, we're live. Just setting up my mic and things there. As is usual on a Tuesday evening, I have quite a bit of a rush to get things ready to go. Hi, Obsidian BLK, good to see you. Thanks for joining this evening. I'm not familiar with your username, don't know whether you've watched me before or not. Right, let's see where we were last time. I think today, apologies for the slight unkemptness as well. I forgot to have a shave this morning. It was just one of those things. Ah, yeah, good to see you. Right, let's jump in and see where we got to last time. I have a feeling I'm going to go with a bit of refactoring this time. My catchphrase over the last few weeks has been "I'll refactor that later," but I think it's got to the point where I should probably do that now. Let's just get things going. Where was I? Right, I need to start up my gulp task, and then I need to. Ooh, hi, Life Knight 345. Good to see you. Lots of people joining early tonight. This is awesome. I usually sit here chatting for a good 5 minutes before anybody even hears what I say. Right, and then we need Chrome to get things up and running. Right, so what I did in the last several streams actually was the collision testing routines, and I ended up actually getting it working pretty well. I had the little indicator, see that's purple, indicates axis collision, which is like flat bit of a triangle against a flat bit of a triangle along the horizontal or vertical. But if you go for a collision along one of the diagonal lines, the hypotenuse, you get a green indicator, which is a slope collision. So that seems to be working pretty well. In fact, actually, what I remember from the last stream, which was last Thursday, I think. Hi, Richard too. Good to see you. Was right at the end of the stream, something wasn't quite working right, and I had partially working collision detection, but not all of it. And literally about 10 minutes after the stream ended, I was just about to commit stuff to GitHub, or I think I just had committed stuff to GitHub, and I was looking back at the code, and it struck me as to exactly what I'd done wrong. So what I did was I fixed it at that point, and if I look at SmartGit now, I should hopefully be able to see what I had to modify to get it to work. So I think it was just a case of, oh, hi Anita, good to see you. There we go. That was my test block. What happened with the fix that I put in? Where is it? I'm sure it was, here we go. What was happening was in one of these functions here, and it was iterating over a grid along the vertical. There we go, the vertical, the Y, and it was going from top to bottom, and it should have been going from bottom to top. And it was just literally one of those tiny glitches where I had a -1 in there when and I didn't have it. Anyway, ooh, lots of people doing today. Hi, Coda, good to see you. And now it works. So with that small change that I didn't actually commit to GitHub at the end of last week, I just wanted to remind myself, so I left it uncommitted. Just checking, there wasn't too much else that I left uncommitted. I added an additional fast bailout to collide objects here. So if the grid object, which is the thing inside the grid, or the moving object that you're moving around is 0, that means it's not a triangle or a square. So it just bails out quickly. And that was me tweaking the objects in the scene that it starts with. So there we go. So I'm using this large sort of house-shaped test object. And if I just ditch this now, because I don't really want that, I can go back to tile 7. Yeah, I shall get rid of that completely. Ooh, welcome, Nylan. Good to see you. Wow, it's quite a busy this evening. Hope everyone's doing well. I was very tempted to pour myself a beer today to drink whilst coding, but I've stuck with the traditional tea instead. Because I'd end up just being silly and doing stupid things. Although only one beer should have been fine. Actually, I've been doing lots of documentation today, and quite often I find a little bit of alcohol will kind of make the words flow more easily while you're tapping away in a Word document to write documentation for things. So tile 7. Let's go back to game and just tweak the starting set of blocks here. So we don't need 8 anymore. I suppose I could do 1 and 1. There we go. So there's 2 blocks the same. So that little indicator tile is kind of in the wrong place. It should flash the whole tile or something, but it was just a block I put in to tell me the type of collision that the detection code had found. Yes, would make some interesting comments if I was drunk. Anyway, is it still working alright? It's mostly all purple, apart from when you actually hit the. That's it. When you hit the sloped edge. Right. And if are you using auto tile generator? No, I don't have any tile generators of any sort. These tiles that you see here that are part of the game are just defined in code. It's all hand drawn using triangles at the moment. So I've got 6 or 7 different no, actually 8 starts at 0, so 8 different tiles. Let me just change my config, because I had for a number of weeks now I've been using a configuration that allows me to just like test my collision code by manually moving things around, and now I'm happy that those bits of collision code are working. I don't need that anymore, so I'll just turn it off and set it to false, and that will take the game back to what it was before, which is blocks dropping down. There's some indication, so some highlights there which highlight the grid squares that collision detection is run against, and then you can see all these different shaped blocks. But I've been doing a lot of code and a lot of fiddling and stuff, and it's been sort of sticking functionality in mostly the wrong places. So for example, a lot of that collision detection code is all in, I think it was all in tile, and I'm not sure if it should be, or at least there's higher level code inside game. Inside the update function, I'm doing quite a lot of loops here to test for collision detection and things. So I'm going to have a look at what I've actually got. Right, I think in this look at it, I can just view the outline. So let's hide code blocks, collapse, expand block, selective display. Nope. Somewhere around here, I'm pretty certain I can. Shall expand collapse block. Yeah, that's probably gonna. I was hoping I might be able to just see what I've got. I might actually start a new file and just do a bit of note taking while I'm doing it. Automatic. Don't add to file. Don't add a project. I mean. So let's ditch that one. That's my old source code in Java from 10 years ago. That CC event must have been something I was looking at. Don't need that. Don't need geometry. Don't need the config. So what we've got is my game class. So game, and it's a layer, has a constructor, sets up some stuff. So inside the game at the moment, we've got mouse handling and key handling. So we've got key pressed handling and mouse handling, which is only done for the test code. So I'll ignore that for now. So inside game, we've got key handling, keyboard handling. Don't need beer to type terribly. I can just do that normally. And then we've got, so there's some collision testing code. Right. Here's the mouse functions. We can ignore those for now. Here's the update function. Right. So this moves the block. So we've definitely got, mouse handling. We've got dropping block movement. Actually, that's in update. So that's even beyond that. So keyboard handling, update. Now we've got rotation as well. So we've got dropping block movement and rotation. And then this at the moment has a bunch of collision testing in it. Or not in it, but as part of the rotation logic, it tests for collision, and it uses this collide block function, which I wrote in the grid class. So this is grid.collide block. So let's see. So down here we've got grid, and that has a collide block method. I'll list some of these methods out in just so I know the names of them. Because I've got collide block, I've also got collide objects, which is the newer one I've been writing. So there's been a bit of duplication of logic and a bunch of other stuff that I think I need to sort out. it's rather nice to be able to refactor some of this stuff. I know if you're in a commercial environment and you're coding to a deadline, it can seem like you're not actually making any progress if you have to refactor your code. And it's sometimes difficult to justify doing, especially to managers or to people looking at the schedules. And I'm rather lucky to be able to do it here. Let's see, so we've got inside the rotate block through 90 degrees includes collide block. And the block, so we have a block class as well, don't we? Yeah. And that has, looks like that's got set rotation and set new rotation and position. Right. I'm just going to do this in a sort of a not any particular order, just as it's sort of laid out in the game class. So we do that inside the update. Then we've got a bit more code. So this particular loops make sure that if the block is dropping and you rotate it, it tests for collision and then moves it if it collides with the side of the screen. But it also, I think it does something if you're next to the grid. Yeah, it prevents me from rotating at that point. So yeah, and that gets stuck there. So there are certainly glitches in the existing collision detection. So that shouldn't have really got stuck there. That should have just moved down. If I rotate that, so that got stuck as well. So I think there's subtle maths going on. Probably the floating point, greater than, less than kind of things are getting stuck. Anyway, a bit further down in the update, what do we do here? dx and dy are the point difference. Fast dropping, yeah, okay, that's another function that it does, doesn't it? Dropping block movement, rotation, and fast drop. Then, and again, that includes collision detection as well. So the movement, if we're testing, test to see if the falling block can move sideways. So sideways movement includes collide block, and test to see if the falling block can move down. So also when the move down, in the fast moving or the normal moving bit, it tests to see whether it can move down, and if it stops. If it can't, let's see, if you go for the collide block, if the falling block cannot move down, lock it in place. Yeah, so that's where it, yeah, perhaps a simple edge on test. I'm sure I've kind of been half reusing my old code, half writing new code, and there's probably some glitches somewhere where it the two don't match very well, or the old logic doesn't work so well in the new JavaScript code. Oh, hi, hello, whoever that was. I just saw a picture appear in the corner. I think it was Ekabarov. Good to see you. Anyway, let's see. So there's more. So each time it moves, there's collision test. I'm going to make a note of that actually. So update. So dropping block. We've got sideways movement. We've got rotation and fast drop. Ooh. And I guess it's not nested, but under each of those is collision test. And different things happen depending on whether or not the tests pass or fail. So then this is all my mouse testing code, so dragging the block around, doing some other things. So this specific set of code here uses my new function that I wrote, which is collide objects. So that was in grid as well. Okay, right. So that was in grid collide objects. Now what was the difference? So collide block is fairly logical. It sort of kind of does the left and right boundaries and the bottom boundary, and it calls the subfunctions collide block with grid bounds. I'm going to put that under here, and it also calls collide block with grid data. So that's the different function which tests to see whether or not I think that's a slightly naive function which should be replaced by my collide objects function that I've been writing. So this one, collide, if I jump to it, here we are, collide block with grid data. at the new position will collide with the tile, and it does so by simply comparing the various bits of data for the triangle. It compares the triangle data for those blocks. So check for triangle overlap here. And if the overlaps, I guess if it's overlapping, then it returns 99, which is a collision. So the trouble with this function is it's naive, and it will fail in certain circumstances, like, and I'll demonstrate it here. So we've got that one with a triangle point. If these two triangles will fall over each other, because actually they pass the overlap test, because they mesh properly, but of course that's not what we want to happen. We want the collision to occur there. So I need to replace that. I think that same problem will occur here. The collision testing function won't actually return a collision, because it's just naively testing cells, and it's not testing the actual moving positions. Oh, hi, Siox. Good to see you. Right, so let's go back to collide block with grid data. I'm going to make a note of the fact that this is naive. How do you spell naive? I'll do. Naive should be replaced by collide objects. Hello, good to see you. I'm doing a bit of refactoring today, so it's one of those things I've been saying for the last few weeks now. I'll refactor that later. I haven't yet got the t-shirt, but I'm now actually doing a bit of refactoring. So there's quite a lot of, the actual logic for calling this collide objects is quite complex, because it loops over all the cells in the moving block, and for each one of those it determines which grid cells that particular moving block cell overlaps, and then it calls collide objects on that. So there's probably, it's not too bad. There's some redundancy, but the fast bailouts and the fact that it only tests a specific number of cells on the grid, it's not testing them all, it's only testing the ones it thinks it's going to overlap with. That's possibly why that, for example, might get stuck, or where, oh, that's interesting as well, it sunk into the baseline. Yeah. Earlier on there was a couple of blocks slid down past each other when they shouldn't. I wonder if it's to do with the collision testing. If I move it around a bit, is it going to get stuck? No, that's not, is it? But that one might. Anyway, at some point one of those got stuck in the wrong place and they shouldn't have. Yeah, well, yeah, like that. See, that shouldn't have stuck, but it was actually collision testing the sort of blocks to the right, like it's doing now when it doesn't need to. So maybe they're not exactly on the grid lines. Anyway, that's something to look at. So what else have we got now? This is my just my drawrect code draws the little indicators, but all of this is within the test code. So actually that's, so what else have we got here? We've got move block, create new block. This is inside game, so we've also got update. We've got create new block. So there's not, luckily there's not a huge amount of stuff at the moment going on in the game function. It's just I'm not happy with the way this collision testing is sort of being integrated. But then we've got various things in grid. I think grid is a bit larger. So as well as the collision functions, we've got a few utility functions which determine various bits. Get grid index positions for tile and rotation. Get grid index positions for block collision. So these are some of the interesting long named functions. I'm going to put those in here. Collide block, collide objects. I'll leave a line because these are kind of sub functions which might be rather verbosely named. I should think about, actually that one just calls that with some different parameters. Oh, collision. All right. Grid. So this one, yeah, this is working out all the. So this is the one that actually works out where the cells to test a block are. So this function here I'm looking at get grid index positions for tile and rotation. That should probably be tile with rotation. Is what returns this kind of list of 9 grid squares, when really it should only return 2 at the most for this little one, but it's returning 4. Oh, thanks for the follow. Excellent. I just saw the fireworks there. Much appreciated. Let me go back to my test code. So in this scenario, and this is probably where my... Hi, Coda. Good to see you. Oh, sorry, you were talking to Richard. I just look at the text as it goes by. True, yeah. So in the fully moving scenario, then it actually makes more sense. You can see that moving block, when it's not aligned with the grid, does overlap those 9 cells. So that's where the collision testing should be occurring. But when it's actually done using the proper game logic, which locks it to the grid cells, yes, it aligns it with the grid, I can get away with some of those. They shouldn't necessarily be tested for, I think. So let's turn it back up again. False. Yeah, it's probably something like, what do I do? Add 1 to the width to cover the block overlapping grid cells horizontally. And then I commented something out. Looks like I did that whilst I was doing my mouse moving code. You actually played it? Wow, on a Nokia or a Sony Ericsson or a feature phone? I'm well pleased that someone actually played it. By the speed of the blocks, yes. I do seem to remember that the block speed does increase. You know, standard Tetris game mechanic. Block speeds increase as the level goes up. Also, there was infinite levels as well, and they just carried on going forever. So this is almost working, but looks like it's got a strange. It's rejecting or using some block cells that it shouldn't do here. Nokia, very old. Yep. So let's put that back in for now, but I'm going to put a comment to figure out what this is supposed to do. We used to, so when we used to do mobile phone games, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again, is we had to do maybe 5 or 6 sort of primary versions of the game, which were designed for different screen sizes and different quality phones. So there were like low quality phones that were cheap and had small screen sizes, and there were the more high powered phones like the smartphones or the sort of Symbian and higher end phones, which were more powerful. You could add more features in, and we had to make the games so that the features could be enabled or disabled depending on the type of phone. So some of the versions of AquaStax, the really low-end phones, the blocks didn't collapse when they broke them, and there was limited rendering on things like the water and some of the levels. I think we had 50 levels in the full game, but I think on some of the smaller Nokia phones we had to knock that down to about 30 because there wasn't enough memory to store them all. So all these different things we had to do, and we made about 7 or 8 primary versions, which had various sets of features you could turn on and off. And then in order to actually release the games on all the handsets that you could get if you went into a Vodafone shop or an O2 shop, or I guess if you're in America it would be AT&T or whatever the other cellular phone companies you've got are, we would have to release probably in the region of around 200 or so different additional versions of the game. So we had a full porting team that went and did all those specific versions. One day I'll fish out the photograph I've got of all of our 650 phones that we had at the end of the sort of era of writing old games before we switched to using iPhones and smartphones. That's a pretty good picture, that one. Oh, hi, HVLMNNS. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name there. Good to see you. Anyway, I was sidetracked by chatting away there. To do determine the overlapping cells properly. This doesn't quite work yet. So I'm going to leave that there for now. So that's, yeah, get tile position rotation. Then we've got these little functions that just do a bit of maths to return indexes into my array. Those brick games have been replaced with Xbox, yeah. But you still get phone games. I mean, we've been doing iPhone games for a number of years now. But you don't see, actually, touchscreens. I think touchscreens have kind of made block dropping games like this a little bit less playable. All the popular games now are sort of match 3, or where you have a full grid and you swipe around on the screen and the blocks don't move by themselves. You have to move them with your touch, with your finger. But I like the old Tetris games. Anyway, so collide block with grid bounds. So that's another one. Collide block with grid data. I had that already, didn't I? Yeah. So, and then we've got move block and new block. Oh no, wrong function or wrong class. So collide block is my high level function, isn't it? Yeah, right. So actually, inside grid, there's just basically, okay, then we've got some lower level functions. So my collide objects deals with collide square with triangle. So this is the code I've been writing most recently. Collide triangle with triangle. These are quite low level. They're not actually based on the blocks. They're based on the actual individual cells within the grid. So we're talking little tiny triangles that it's working on. So maybe they shouldn't be in grid, or well, I'll decide where to put things once I've got a picture of the whole lot of code in my head. Then we've got insert block into grid. That's takes the moving block and puts its data into the grid data structure in the background once it finishes, right? So that's, I'll put a gap there as well because that's kind of functionally slightly different. So there are the collision functions. There's some grid indexing functions, and then we've got that. Going the wrong way. I think that's the bottom, isn't it? Yes. So then we've got tile and block. So we've got, I'll put block, actually I'll put tile there. So the tile is the more of the static definitions of my blocks. So we've got the tile data, and these little numbers define my types of triangles, and some colors and other things in there. So init tile data, check for cell triangle overlap. Where's that used? Actually, tile defines some functions in my top level namespace. So I'll make a note of that. So tile aq dot. So I should probably have a new set of, or a new, what am I talking about? I should probably have something separate for that. Hi Sean Pye, good to see you. Or is it Sean PI? Are you a private investigator? That'd be pretty cool. Hope you're not investigating me. Right, so we got check tile for, yeah, see this is cell triangle overlap. This is quite possibly more than, oh no, it's, I was going to say it's something to do with the grid, but it's actually using the triangle types that we've defined. So then we've got get tile bounds. Work out the number of grid cells from the bottom left. Are there? So these are tile related functions, aren't they? Sorry, there's not a lot of code being written today, but you can go back and watch my older videos for bits of code. I always say to myself, I'll do this kind of stuff off stream, but I don't have time. I'm doing other things all the time. So this is my AquaStax development hour and a bit. And just like me, I'm a bit unkempt at the moment without my shaving. My code is a bit unkempt, so I'm gonna fix it up. Get tile cells, return a list of tile cells with position offsets. Yeah, this is another interesting function. There's probably a bit of scope in here as well for actually getting rid of some of these old functions. I mean, my data structures are taken from my old game, and they might well not be the best way of doing it. I mean, I'm actually storing my grid data as a single integer array. So grid has block list. No, it's not block list. It's game grid, which is actually an integer array, and its bits are packed into that. Oh, welcome DRMJG. Good to see you. And really, I don't need. I mean, we had to do bit packing and things like that in the old mobile phone days, but really, I don't think I need to do that now. It's pretty interesting to do that. Ooh, DRMJG appears to be a moderator. Good to see you. I don't know how that happened. I thought one had moderation abilities in my own chat room, but maybe I've stolen someone else's chat room. Right. How do you become a moderator in someone else's chat room? I'd like to know. Anyway, where was I? I was looking at my tile functions. Yeah, I think maybe there's. I mean, I'd be actually if I did refactor it all and got rid of some of my data structures, that'd be quite a big job, I think. But we'll see. Once I've got it in my head, I can figure it out. Get tile cells. Yeah, we wrote that down, and then we've got AQ create tile node at rotation. This is create a draw node. So this is some stuff to do with draw nodes. Tile rendering now. There's a candidate for separating out actual rendering functions. And then we've got draw triangle, which uses the draw node methods. And again, these are all in my global namespace. What engine am I using? I'm using the Cocos2d-JS engine. So it's HTML, HTML5 canvas, but it's all Cocos2d-JS on top of that. You can look at the website. I think I've got it on my Safari here somewhere. Where is it? There it is. It's part of the Cocos2d-X family. So I've used it for quite a while. I've done iOS and Android games and web, Facebook games as well using it. It's quite esoteric actually. There's a lot of stuff to it, and the documentation isn't great. If you go to the API reference, it's just a great sort of list of functions, and it's quite difficult. There's not even a really nice search function for it, but it's pretty powerful, and I'm reasonably familiar with it, having used it for a while, and I'm also familiar with using it to build iOS, Android, and web games. So hopefully I can make this available on several platforms once it's all done. Where was I going? So the CC Node, for example, that's one of the major classes, and you can see the documentation layout is not that great, but it is all source code available, which is nice. So you can dive into the source code really easily, especially debugging in Chrome. Where was I? Right, so I'm down to draw triangle. That's the kind of lowest level rendering code, isn't it? And then if I look at block, let's see what it does. Making 3JS, yeah, that's probably a much cleaner front-end library or engine for doing so. I haven't used that myself yet, but I've looked at some of the samples and things, and it looks pretty nice. Cocos2d-JS is pretty heavyweight. There's lots of stuff in it. Ooh, a big comment there. Even if you don't have to do bit packing, if it works for the situation, would it not be better to? Would not worrying about compacting your data lead to habits that create less than optimized code? Yeah. I don't know. It's something we used to do all the time, packing bits around. I'm not too worried about it. I can understand it. It's when your data structures aren't the best way of solving problems, and you start working around them and writing awkward esoteric code, that tends to be a problem. And that's kind of what I've found at the moment. If I look in something like the grid, I mean, you look at, let's see, get index positions for tile rotation. I'm doing this kind of stuff here, lot of loops and things. And if I used an actual array with objects in for each cell, I could just store all that data. All of this boundary stuff, lots of things. I'd avoid all this kind of testing like that. Lots of and FFs, which although I might understand, somebody else might not. Welcome, Yana CL. Good to see you. Anyway, I think I'm just going to refactor at the high level for the minute. So that was just me talking out loud as I was thinking about stuff. So I'm probably not going to worry too much about actually rewriting it all from scratch. I do actually want to get this game finished, although I'm working on it slowly. My plan is to get it done by the end of the year, so I've got a nice long time to get it done by. Oh, and thanks for the follow. Excellent, much appreciated. So we've done tile, and now we want to look at block. Let's put that there. So my block is the moving object in the game, and a new one of these is created in new block. It works out a bit of positioning and then actually creates a new block object. And the block references a tile, which is a tile number, which is the kind of static data for that block. So blocks do a few. I just have a few. There's just basically a bit of a data store. It contains the draw node, so it does the rendering. Yeah. Any serious collision going on? No, it's nothing horrible. It's just literally triangles and things. I'm not doing pixel perfect collision or anything like that. Well, it would be because the actual geometry should correspond directly to pixels, but nothing like sprites and things like that, and transparent sprites and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, constructor, create target node. So get new rotation and position. So this is called during the initialization, isn't it? Yeah. Oh no, that's not actually. Get rotation and position. What's that called? Just going to do a quick search on that. See where it's called. Okay. Potential new rotation. So this rotates. This changes the block and rotates it around. Okay, and it returns these values. Set new rotation and position, right? So they're probably the so in a block, set new rotation and position. There's also a get new rotation and position. So that's rotating it through 90 degrees, and the rest is just sort of data getters. I'll put in the fact that there's an init or kind of a constructor. So I've got the overall stuff going on, the game, the higher level logic, mostly in the update loop, which is where you'd expect. I've got a bunch of stuff in the grid, which is mostly dealing with collision detection and working out positions within the grid and putting a moving block into it. The tile appears to all be pretty much utility functions, which are actually then used all over the place, but mostly by block, or mostly when interacting with a block. So for example, we've got create tile node at rotation. So the blocks are referencing AQ tile data directly. Actually, the tile creates this sort of big array of tile data. I'll actually put that in the AQ.tiledata structure. It's mostly static. So should block and tile be the same thing, I wonder? Am I confusing things by having tiles and blocks? I think a block, or the block class, should probably contain most of this. And I mean, there's not much else apart from the static data, with bits of returning the boundaries. What else? I can look in here, can I? So init tile, check for cell triangle overlap, which I think is probably redundant once I've got my more complete collide objects function working or in use. So in grid.js, it is just called inside my collide block with grid data method, which is the one I marked as redundant. Yes, so I think that is also redundant. Redundant. Actually, I'll mark that as redundant. Okay, so that's good. Then, what else does it do? Get tile bounds. That's just some, again, get tile bounds is probably only called when working with a block. So what are we doing here? Inside grid.js. So we've basically got the falling block. We get its tile number and its rotation, and then we get the grid size by looking inside the tile data, and then we call get tile bounds to get its boundaries. So again, that should be a function on block, shouldn't it, really? We can just call falling block, get the boundary, get the grid size, etc., etc. Again, tile bounds down here. So that's grid index positions for tile and rotation. But again, is that only ever going to be used on a block? Self.gridIndex, where is it called from? It's called there. And again, the thing we've done is self.block in this instance, I think, is the moving block, or the one that was moving around. So it's only ever really going to be used by, it's the falling block that's going to be the thing that that kind of function is used for. And then create tile node at rotation. I think that's just used in the block constructor. That was the one that was called 4 times in the block constructor. So yeah, I think part of my refactoring is going to be to get rid of my tile class entirely, put most of its functionality inside block, and then see where we go from there. So that's one thing to do. So let's make a note of what I want to actually do. To refactor. 1, move the tile functions into block. Okay. Hopefully that won't be too onerous, but we'll see. Then I'm not sure about this collision detection. So I suppose there's probably a bit of an overlap in the collision detection between the grid and the blocks, because the blocks are always going to be colliding with things in the grid, aren't they? So actually, it probably won't. It'll be one of those edge case things where it won't actually matter where they go. If I put the collision detection functions in a separate set of routines in a separate file, I'll be passing in grid data and block data to them. If I put them in the grid, I'll be passing in the block data. If I put them in the block, I'll be passing in the grid data. So they're always going to need to be using combinations of grid and block data. But actually where I put them probably is more a case of either aesthetics or just simplicity of code. So I'll tell you what, if I start with the tiles and the refactoring the tile functions into block, then we'll see what we end up with. And that will probably give me a bit of an idea as to where the collision detection stuff is better to go. So I'm going to write that as decide best place to handle collisions. It may even be that I handle the collisions all inside the game. Yeah. The thing is, I can't really look at my old code to see how I did it before, because everything was in one monolithic function. It was AquaStax.java, and there was an update method, and it did everything. Obviously by calling sub-functions as necessary, but there was never any sort of class structure going on or any real thought to where stuff needed to happen. I'm just going to take another sip of tea, because I've been doing lots of talking today. Less coding, far too much talking. I must try not to talk so quickly. I definitely have a tendency to rattle on at a bit of a fair old speed. Anyway, so let's actually, now having done that, and in fact I might save this file. Save as, where will I stick it? AquaStax reference, yeah, let's put it in there, and I'll call it refactor.text. And I'm going to date it as well. What date are we? 17th. 2017. First major refactoring. fact, save me jumping down to the bottom of the file every time. Right, so let's get to work on tile functions. So, how long have I got? 15 minutes. Well, I'm not going to get too far, but at least we can make a start on it, and then I've got a nice plan for the next couple of streams, hopefully. Next stream will be Thursday afternoon, 3 PM UK time. That's when I'm fairly regularly stream. Hope you can make it then. I'm usually on for an hour and a bit, and I'll probably be on for longer than the hour today as well. So, do follow me as well. And also, you can give me a rating if you like on the old chatbot. No one's rated me yet. Nope, 0. Anyway, so we've got this tile data. Do I want to change it to be called block data? Tile data. How many times is it used? So it's used in quite a few places. It's all referenced aq.tiledata. Rendering types of triangles. And I should probably call it static data as well, because it's really not fiddled around with much at runtime, although some additional parts of it are created when the game starts up. It's not actually all defined. This pre-rotate tile function occurs. Right, I'm going to leave it as tile data for now, but I'm going to put it in the block class. So, tile data. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit my code to GitHub first, because this is probably going to break a lot of stuff. And while it's still working, I want it at least a copy I can roll back to that works. And I did make a few changes. Oh yeah, there's that glitchy collision test where it's stuck where it shouldn't have. Oh, it did it there as well. Anyway, let's just do that now. I'll add that as well. Nope. Actually, I need to stage those. Yep, that's gone. Right. So now we can start ripping the code apart, and I can always roll back if I need to. So I guess I can just borrow this for a minute. aq.tiledata. I'm going to put that. Do I cut or do I copy? I'm going to cut, I think. I'm going to put it into block. So do I store it as part of the block? Now the question is, can I have static data within Cocos2d object hierarchy system? So we're still using JavaScript or ES5, or no, is it 4? I can't even think which version it is. It's not ES6, the new version of JavaScript, which has a defined hierarchical object-oriented structure to it. So we're still using the way of old kind of using JavaScript constructs to build object-oriented systems. Can I have static data? Let's see. I don't know. I won't worry about it for the minute. I will. Rating is. Somebody give me a rating? 80%. Wow, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Well, somebody give me a 1% rating as well. It's interesting. My there it is. Rate 1, yes. It's supposed to be 10, but it was a 0. Chat windows are slightly out of sync. I've got one on here, which is the broken out web view from Live Coding's website on one window, and the other window I've got just a terminal window into the chat, which I think looks a little bit cooler, but isn't as well coloured or easy to understand. And they're slightly out of sync, so I'm getting confused. Anyway, I'll leave it like that for a minute. Just put tile data. I'm going to call it. I'm going to leave it as tile data. So then we've got this init function, which has to happen. Where does init tile data get called from? That's probably out of the root of game, isn't it? Okay, right. So definitely need to pinch that. And this basically goes through and takes all the tiles and rotates them by 90 degrees 4 times or 3 times, so that, there we go, loop 0 to 3, so that we end up with the data. Oh, welcome Solus, good to see you. So we end up with the data that get the tile data, which is defined here. We end up with that rotated through 90 degrees. So that does that okay for a minute. Oh, and I meant to cut it, not copy it. So get rid of that, delete. So now we can check for triangle cell overlap. I'm going to inline that for the minute. I'm going to inline it in the one function that uses it, so I can get rid of it as a global function. There we go. It's just used in here, isn't it? So let's just inline this function. I'll get rid of that because I know I'm going to remove it soon. And we want to go to grid. There we go. So I'll just put it here for now. Right, let's so that's got that out of the way. Now we've got to work out the number of grid cells from the bottom left that are empty of filled tile triangles. So I actually wrote quite a complex comment for this, and it's a bit of function that does a bunch of work. Now this is a candidate for some data I think I can just initialize once and then reference it multiple times, a bit like the rotation data. So where's this used? This is only used in a couple of places. However, it is in the update every frame basically, so it should probably be cached and then used from the cache rather than calculated every frame. So we've got this get tile bounds. And it needs to be, probably needs to be get grid bounds, doesn't it? Or get tile bounds, it's actually just a function on the, I'm going to, so it takes a rotation and a tile number, doesn't it? At the moment it's just used in these places. Okay. So there we have a block already. So we could call it on the block. And here, get grid index positions for tile and rotation. So there we have a block, but we don't down here. Is that one called in any place? So it's called there. But this is, yeah, at the moment this is my test code, but moving 3, 0 and cell position. 3 and 0, where do they come from? Oh, that's fake. That was a bit of code I put in to test against a square block. So that's probably a bit of code I can get rid of. Well, hi, vodka. I take it you like vodka? I'm more partial to whiskey or gin myself, but I like vodka as well if it's available. Won't say no if it's offered to me. Do I want to get rid of that? Get tile bounds. I'm going to. It's difficult to do this refactoring and then keep it working as you do it. I might be able to do that at the moment. Let's see if I can, because I'm still defining that there, and aq.tiledata is still defined there. I might actually be able to, this might still work. Yes, I'd like to keep the code free of too many breakages because it's difficult to track those down using the debugger, since there's no compiler that will tell me the compilation errors because there aren't any compilations going on. although JS hint should be telling me a few things, I tend to ignore it. It sort of hides itself away. Yeah. So we're still working. Get tile bounds. So I'm going to move this get tile bounds into the block, and I think it should probably be get. Does it use any other sub-functions? No, it doesn't. So get rid of that. Move it into block. So I'm actually going to put this into the block class or block object. Let's put new stuff down the bottom. Now shift that out. So function n being the tile number, isn't it? And rotation being the rotation. Now if we already have tile number and rotation as part of the data in our block, so I reckon I can get rid of those, and for now I'm just going to put tile num there, and wherever rotation is, oh, that's going to be self. Ooh, and that's reminded me I need to put in the var self equals this, and then self dot, is it rot or rotation? Self dot rot goes in here. And I'm also going to do can't remember if you need to put semicolons or colons after to-dos. I don't think I've got anything that will automatically tell me if I've got a list of to-dos. Some things like Eclipse will basically show you a to-do list based on the to-dos it finds in your comments. I think there might be a macro script for Slickit that'll do that for me. But anyway, to do calculate once at startup and cache the values. So now we've got to change get tile bounds from grid. Yeah, so actually this is going to be self.falling block .get tile bounds, and we don't need that. Do I need tile num and rotation anywhere else? That's grid size. Yeah, we use grid size. No, it doesn't look like we need. It's tile num and rotation were just for the purposes of passing to that function. Okay, get rid of those. And grid size, okay, that's something that should probably not reference the tile data directly, but I'm going to leave that in there for now. Right, where else was it used? So in here, so this is where we have a block for get tile boundaries. And it's called from here. What I want to know is this called from anywhere? Actually, one more time. There's here. Here we can just change this to block. And in fact, collide block with grid bounds. We don't need the tile num at that point, do we? Ah, but the block needs to be rotated through a new rotation. Oh, good afternoon, Yanasiel. I've got one text pop up there, but not over here yet. Ah, crazy. I'm going to ditch this thing. I think it's called profanity, which I use for showing the chat on the live stream. It's a good name for it, actually. Oh, there it is. Wow, that was a delay of a good 15-20 seconds or so, I think. There must be definitely some delay going on there. Maybe it's called profanity because you end up swearing at it after a while when you realize it doesn't work quite as well as it should. Anyway, so get yeah. So now I've just realized that I'm actually get tile bounds might need the rotation passed into it, or at least the block has need the rotation in particular. Get tile bounds. I could do this. Rotation if and put it back in here. That way the function can be used to either get the tile boundaries for the block as it is, or get the block at a different rotation, because we need to use that in certain circumstances. So get tile bounds in wherever I was, this instance here, I do need to pass in new rotation because we're testing the block after it's rotated. So let's save that. And we've still got this one to figure out, haven't we? So we're not passing in a block at this point. So what are we doing? Grid index positions for block collision. So this grid index positions for tile and rotation. So that was used in here, and I was faking. I was basically using it to test against a square. See, that tile number 3 and 0 is the grid indexes for a square at that position, cell position. I can probably get those via another mechanism. Let's have a look in grid. What does it normally do? It just says get grid indexes for point, doesn't it? And then it loops over a bunch of stuff. I wonder. So I've got a couple of methods in grid for returning grid positions for points. Grid position for point. That just returns 1. What I need, this is the idea for this, is that I get the list of overlapping grid cells for a particular position in the grid, or a block that's moving at a particular position. Ooh, welcome. Somebody joined and then their name doesn't appear on the list yet. It was FCK Emil, or FC Camel. Yes. Right. How am I gonna get around this? I suppose I could fake it by creating a block at that position. Yeah, why don't I do that? Why don't I create a test block and store it, and then just use its position. So what I actually want in here is just tile. Nope, I've gone mad. It's grid, isn't it? Here we are. So this one. This is the business. So for this one, I what I'm going to do is create a collision test. For now, I'm just going to call it temp block. And this is going to be pretty certain it's only inside this block of code at the moment as well. So self.temp block equals new block, and it's got to be new block. It's number 3, and I'm going to set the position. Actually, that doesn't matter about the position, but it's block 3 because it's borrowing from that number there. So we're using tile number 3. So down here, what we want to do is we want to position. So self.tempBlock.set position cellpos, and then we want to call self.tempBlock.get grid index positions for tile and rotation. Actually, no, it's grid. For the moment, we're going to pass that into grid. Grid.get index position for, and it's not for tile and rotation, it's for block collision. And it's self.tempBlock. And we don't need that. Do we need the position and the rotation, don't we? But I think that can be left blank because I'm pretty certain that by not passing those in, it comes back as using the block position anyway. But I suppose I might as well. I'll put in the rotation and the position and rotation. Oh, look at that. I must have been a bit drunk when I wrote this bit of code, because here I put down position and rotation, and there I put down rotation and position in the wrong order, which must be very confusing. Well, it's certainly confusing me now, so I'm definitely going to get some benefit out of refactoring this code, that's for sure. Right. Game. Get grid index positions for block collision, block position and rotation. So for now, a block, cellpos, and I know the rotation is 0 because it's never going to change. So now we can hopefully have block get tile bounds. So all we need to do is ditch this function here. I remember now separating these two functions out in order to be able to call this function from that other place. It's still not perfect the way I've done a temporary block, but we'll fix that in another point in time. So let's go for, I can pretty much just ditch that, can't I? So what are we doing now? Get tile cells. So these are still in there. Does it still work? Have I broken something? I've broken something. Let's see, we might be able to fix this up and then call it a night. aq.init tile data is not a function. Oh, unexpected. I must have got a. Yeah, where I was copying and pasting into block.js and put this correct. So what are we doing here? Oh, it's supposed to jump between brackets, but it's showing it blue. I think it's just that I don't need, isn't it? Okay, still broken. Block is not defined, so something still isn't working. It's not block, it's aq.block. Where's that? 92 of game.js. That's how it does it down the bottom. Yeah, there it is. Right. Ooh. Tile numbers not defined in grid.js. Okay. So let's, what line was that on? Line 78. So this is where I'm referencing tile data directly. I reckon I can just call block and get grid size out of that, can't I? If I haven't already got a get grid size function in my block, I'm going to add one. Get rotation, get grid size. Grid size. Is that what it's called? Grid size, yes. So back in wherever it was, grid.js. Basically, I can just do is tile num used anywhere else? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Get tile bounds is not a function. Ah, okay. So that's where I need to change it to block. So that's grid line 196. So it's not AQ, it's block. Right, and still working, or at least it appears to be. Oh, and it's broken. Worked for a little way, and then we crashed. Cannot read property 0 of undefined. Block.js line 320. Oh, okay. Wonder why not. So grid pause. Let's just. Can I break on? Which is the thing that says break on an exception? Is that it? Did that break? No, not paused. Too many things open in Chrome debugger here. Get rid of some of these. Whoa, loads of them. Right. Let's try that again. Add element, pause in debugger. I'm just trying to decide whether or not I've got whatever I need. That's pause, isn't it? Somewhere there's the thing that says break on uncaught exceptions, and I'm missing it. Where's that? Call stack, breakpoints. Nope. Ah, it's hiding off the side of the. That's what I want. No, hovering over it's not working, but here we go. Pause on caught exceptions. Right. Ooh, hi, GJ1118. There we go. Right, now we've got the exception. So rotation 5. How has that got rotation 5? Okay. Tile num. Ah. Get tile num 5. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Right, rotation 0. Yeah. So how is tile grid data rotation? Oh, have I done the thing where I passed the parameters in the wrong way around? I bet I have. So I've got get grid index positions for block collision, and you pass it a position and a rotation. Position and a rotation. So that's rotation. Huh. Hello, good to see you. That's an awesome setup you have there. Oh, thank you very much. I don't know if you're referring to my multi-monitor setup. I have two computers as well. PC running Windows on the one monitor and Mac running on 2 monitors here. It's quite an old PC, but these monitors were really good quality ones when I bought them. They're HP 1920 by 1200 actually. No, yeah, 1920 by 1200. So I'm actually running this middle monitor at a non-standard resolution because I'm running it at 1920 by 1080 in order to get a full screen capture for the streaming of a proper HD resolution. If I captured at the normal 1920 by 1200 of the monitor, then you'd get black borders at the top and bottom of your screens, or down the sides, one or the other. So it's slightly blurry for me, but it's actually quite easy to see. Welcome India, good to see you. Wow, it's quite a lot of people watching now. I'm loath to finish actually. I've been 9:15. I've been an hour and a quarter so far. I'm not in any rush tonight. My wife goes out on a Tuesday evening, so there's no urgency for me to finish. She'll be back in about an hour or so's time, I suspect. So I might just I'd rather get my code working and then leave it at that rather than leave it with something that's broken. I always hate doing that, going home at the end of a day if you're working or finishing something that's not quite complete, especially since I know I'm not going to be working on this again for another couple of days. If it's broken when I come back to it on Thursday, I'll spend 45 minutes fixing it, whereas hopefully I can get it done in the next sort of 15 or so now. So where was I? I was trying to figure out why we've got grid data and it's indexed with rotation 5 when that's actually the tile num. So get tile bounds has been called here with tile num. Right, yes, you don't need that anymore, do you? Get tile bounds was I changed the function so that tile bounds, it only needs to take a rotation. Right, so in that case, I need to change grid.js line 196. Here, just change that. Right. I can feel we're quite close to it working now. Ooh, that was good. Excellent. Right, it's coming in. At least it feels like it's working as well as it was before. And I've refactored some of my tile code out and into block. Still got a bit of stuff left in tile. We've got get tile cells, create tile node at rotation, and then the rendering functions. Let's just see what will need to be tweaked if I move these. So this one is only called out of game.js, and it's actually passed in self.block.getTileNum and getRotation. See, I obviously wrote this, but you don't realize when you write code just how you're going to use it and what's going to be good to put where and what's not. You know, it always changes. So doing this, realizing now that getTileCells is the obvious place to put it is on the block. It's quite obvious to see that, but when I obviously wrote the code, it wasn't that obvious. So now I can just copy this and put it inside the block object. And this is probably another candidate for optimizing so that it appears, just gets called once and then data is cached. But I'm going to steer away from that just yet. Premature optimization is not necessarily a good thing. So get tile cells, and I don't need the tile num or the rotation because they are part of the class. Quite what happened there. I hit a key combination very quickly, and it filled my window. Okay, that's something. Ooh, thanks for following. Excellent. I like your icon as well. Nice pug picture. Pretty good. I think I had 2 follows there. Oh no, just one. I was confused by the text that appeared. So that's get tile cells, and that's actually called here. So I literally just need to do self.block.getTileCells. And do I pass it? It's passed include empty, which is false anyway, or not called from, so you don't need to care about that. Don't even know why I put that in there. Save that one. Are we still working? Yep. Right. So was that going to overlap? Ah, this one should collide. Ah, interesting there. It also collided there. That's a rather interesting spot. Yeah. I was going to see if that green triangle moved over that one, and I think it should have collided, just like this one should collide here. Yeah, it does. Good. Just digressing slightly. Right, and now we've got the create tile node at rotation. So this, I think, is this the thing that was called? Yeah, this is the thing that's called in block 4 times. So it's really just a bit of the setup for when a block is called. So that's going to definitely go inside block. So 0, 0 tile num 1, 2, 3, 4. Create tile node at rotation. So this is rendering. So now we're getting into the area of the rendering methods. Or I'm going to just undo that Control Z there to put that back in. I think I might stop there because I'm going to have to think a little bit about the rendering. So where I've got blocks, they're rendered using draw nodes, which is the Cocos2d-JS node, which allows you to draw a bit of geometry. And so far, it's using triangles, or it's using polygons, but they're just triangles. I'll think a little bit about how I want to structure the rendering code within the block before I blindly just copy these two functions in, because these are the rendering bits, and there might be a sensible way of doing that, which will mean at some point I can make it a bit easier to change those around, because I'm not gonna, as you see at the moment, each block is drawn as 2 triangles or multiple triangles, and the triangles have an outline around them. I think that's the draw triangle method down here has an outline color in one of these parameters. Can I hover over that? Does it give me any? Yes, it does give me a little bit of help. So vertices, number of vertices, close polygon fill. I'm not sure if that's the right method or not, but anyway, I'm pretty certain that that white is the outline. And I think I'm going to, I want an outline around the entire block, but not around the individual triangles. So I'm going to be changing these rendering functions at some point, although probably to something very similar. Still draw rendering with triangles, just no outline, and then drawing an outline around the edge separately using a draw polygon again. But I'm going to leave those in there for now. So refactor, let's just, to move the tile functions inside block, I'm going to put 2 functions to go, mainly rendering related. Right, so we're still working for the most part. I might just check that this code path is also still working. I'm going to need to do this. We're going to need to make sure it's all fine. Yep, collision is much more accurate there. It's colliding. Ignore the fact that the block is appearing in the bottom left. That's just the indicator block is appearing where the mouse pointer is as to what the type of collision is that's occurring. So there we've got the axis collisions, and there we've got the slope collision. So that's all good. I will turn that to false. I'm going to commit this as it is and then call it a day, I think. That's been a fairly productive hour and 25 minutes on my part, I think. I hope it wasn't too boring to watch. Thanks for sticking around. Quite a good number of you today. Let's do the commit. So moved most of the functions from tile into block.js. Still 2 rendering ones to go. You can of course check out the code yourself on GitHub if you want to. I still, this is a bit of a bugbear actually, I still haven't got around to writing the little script that will allow you to actually check it out and then run it automatically. The way that Cocos2d-JS works is when you create a project, and I can show you here in my terminal, you use the Cocos command, and you create a new project and things like that. And you do, I think it's Cocos new, and it does a load of copying of its framework files. So all of the JavaScript files that make up the engine that I've got in my project here, just for the purposes of being able to search through them and stuff, they all go into the frameworks folder. But I've not checked that into GitHub. It's not committed. So if you do clone the repository or check the code out and do a npm install to get the grunt tasks and stuff working, you'll get no modules, but you don't get frameworks. And I haven't actually documented how you get that yet. You effectively have to create a new template project or a new blank project, and then copy this frameworks file into your own place. But I want to write a script that does that. That way somebody can check it out. I think I'll get around to doing that at about the same time as I get around to building the website, or at least the site AquaStax.com. I still own the domain name for it, where you can actually just go and play the code. It's almost playable. I mean, it's not quite, but it's almost there. You know, there's almost something I could actually just put on a website and have an automatic build every time I commit code that put the latest version up there. When I do that, I think I'll make the script as well. That'll probably come in a few weeks actually, because I'm getting to the point where once I've refactored, got the collision, I think I'll finish the refactoring. I'll get my collision detection a bit more solid and working into all of the points where it needs to work. Like, for example, the collision here will occur and it will slide down, and then that'll be pretty much all the block logic done. And then I can start going on to the animated Gumbler sprites and the little men that walk around on the game. If you look at the live coding TV page, you'll see the animation with the little guys. In fact, I can show it to you here if you haven't seen it already. Where's my Finder window? Ooh, off screen. Somewhere in here, AquaStax. My reference has a little animated GIF. Is it mockup? Oh no, that's a mock-up of the old loading animation. Maybe it's... Did I get the wrong one? Did I load loading animation? I didn't. It's disappeared. I know where it is. It's not in stream assets. So there, that's the one I want. Will Chrome show me animation? Yes, it does. There we go. So, if you haven't seen it before, that's the game running as it used to do on an old mobile phone. I don't need Safari anymore. So you see the little guys walking around. That's the thing I'll get onto after I've done the block dropping. There they go. And with that, I shall call it a day. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Much appreciated. Do follow me if you like. I think a bit earlier on someone gave me some rating, didn't they? Yes, 80%. That's pretty good. That's the best one I've got so far that I didn't rate myself. So much appreciated, and I will see you guys and girls on Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Thanks very much indeed. Let's go back to I've got to use my monitor over here with my OBS window. Go back to the intro.